Good evening, visitors. Welcome to the Australian War Memorial's Last Post ceremony. My name is Emily Hiles, and joining us today from the Royal Australian Air Force is Flying Officer Elizabeth Weston. We are honoured to acknowledge Brigadier General Jared Helwig, Director, Logistics and Engineering, United States Indo-Pacific Command, Brigadier Todd Ashurst, Director General Logistics, Australian Army, Captain Amanda Howard, Director of International Logistics Partnerships, and the accompanying delegation. We're also honoured to acknowledge Mr. Sid Lynch, President of the Returned and Services League of Australia, Cardiff sub-branch, and the accompanying branch members. We welcome the veterans who have served, those that are still serving, and the families that love and support them. During this evening's ceremony, wreaths will be laid at the base of the pool of reflection by visitors to the memorial. If you're able, please stand and join in singing the national anthem. The Australian War Memorial was the vision of Charles Bean, Australia's First World War official historian. Bean landed with the Australian troops on Gallipoli and stayed with them at the front through to the end of the war. The idea of this national memorial and museum came to him at Pozières, France, in the depths of the bloody fighting of 1916. Bean's idea was that this would be a place where families and friends could mourn loved ones buried in faraway places. It would also be a place that could help all Australians understand what these men and women had endured and what they had done for us. Bean's vision, to which we remain true, is best expressed as inscribed in the entrance to the memorial's galleries. Here is their spirit, in the heart of the land they loved, and here we guard the record which they themselves made. Tonight, we will read the story behind just one of those on the Roll of Honour, which lists the names of more than 102,000 men and women who have given their lives for us in war and on operations for more than a century. But first, we present a lament, flowers of the forest. Wreaths and floral tributes will now be laid at the base of the pool of reflection.
Today we remember and pay tribute to Private Frederick Ignatius Dirou. Fred Dirou was born in 1895 to Joseph and Bridget Dirou of Young, New South Wales. He was one of 10 children born to the couple, although more than one of these children died in infancy. Fred was educated at the Presentation Convent School in Young and went on to become a grocer. He was described as one of the best conducted men in town. Fred Dirou enlisted in the Australian Imperial Force in September 1915, just over a year after his older brother Joe. He underwent a period of training in Australia before leaving for active service overseas with reinforcements to the 4th Battalion in December 1915. He was first sent to Egypt, where he was able to see his brother, who had recently returned from serving with the artillery on Gallipoli. At the time, the Australian Imperial Force was undergoing a period of reorganisation and expansion, and as part of this process, he was transferred to the 2nd Battalion. From Egypt, Private Fred Dirou was sent to France, and in June 1916, he was sent to the 1st Field Ambulance with an ear infection. To his surprise, he met his brother Joe, who was having his knee fixed after being kicked by a horse. They were able to spend about 8 hours together before Fred was sent to Bologna to recover. It was the last time Fred would see his brother. Joe would be killed by artillery fire in July 1917. Fred Dirou spent about a week having treatment on his ears before being discharged to base details in Bologna, where he stayed over the bitterly cold winter of 1916 and 1917. He returned to the 2nd Battalion in March 1917 and spent the rest of the year serving first on the Somme and later around the Belgian town of Ypres. In February 1918, Dirou's ear infection returned and he was again sent to hospital. He wrote to his mother that he was doing well and that he expected to be back with the battalion before the letter reached her. Dirou returned to the 2nd Battalion in the field before the letter reached his mother. In late April, shortly after Dirou arrived, the 2nd Battalion entered the front line, spending the next few weeks there and in support trenches immediately behind, working on consolidating the position. On the 8th of May, it was relieved, but came under heavy enemy shell fire. 1 man was killed and Private Fred Dirou was wounded. Private Dirou was removed from the battlefield and taken to the 55th General Hospital in France. The same week, his mother received the letter from her son. She received several more letters. One was from the matron of the hospital Fred was in, who wrote to say, he was admitted on May 9th, suffering from severe wounds in the right leg, which were found to be infected with gas gangrene. His leg was immediately amputated to give him his only chance. I regret to say his condition is most grave and critical. I do hope and pray that I may be allowed to send you better news next week. 6 days later, the matron wrote again, saying, everything possible was done for your poor boy. The surgeons hardly left the ward, but all day he gradually got weaker and passed to his final rest at 9:15 a.m. on the 14th of May, 1918. There is one comfort you will always have. Your son's was the most honourable death. He made the supreme sacrifice for his mother country at her greatest hour of need, and as one of this war's heroes will ever remain sacred. Fred made such an impact on the nurses in the hospital that a soldier who arrived at the time of his death wrote to Dirou's mother. He wrote, at the beginning of the war, I had a brother killed, and it troubled my poor mother, because we could not find out for a long time how our dear boy had passed his last days. And I thought you would like to know how your son died and of his last moments. I seem to know your boy quite well, though I'm sorry to say I never saw him. It was the nurses that used to speak to me of him. They all thought a lot of him. He was so good and cheerful. Even to the last, he bore his trouble with a smiling face. I am a brother of your dear son, for we are all brothers in this terrible war. We are here for one great purpose, of serving our beloved country, for which your dear boy has given his life. Today, Private Fred Dirou is buried in Bologna, Eastern Cemetery, under the words, "Have mercy upon him, Lord, and let perpetual light shine upon him." He was 23 years old. His name is listed on the Roll of Honour on my right, among almost 62,000 Australians who died while serving in the First World War. A photograph of his headstone is displayed today beside the pool of reflection. This is but one of the many stories of service and sacrifice told here at the Australian War Memorial. We now remember Private Frederick Ignatius Dirou, who gave his life for us, for our freedoms, and in the hope of a better world.
Please stand for the reading of the Ode and the sounding of the last post.
They shall grow not old, as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun, and in the morning, we will remember them. Lest we forget.
Lest we forget. We leave you this evening with the words of the memorial's founder, Charles Bean. Many a man lying out there at Pozières or in the low scrub at Gallipoli, with his poor, tired senses barely working through the fever of his brain, has thought in his last moments, well, it's over, but in Australia, they will be proud of this. Ladies and gentlemen, that concludes the last post ceremony. On behalf of the Director and staff, thank you for visiting the Australian War Memorial today and for your continued support of the Memorial's development project. We particularly appreciate your visit despite the challenges posed by COVID, and we wish you all a very pleasant evening.